I'm in the middle of previewing the 4 biggest games still to come out this generation. So far I've covered Cyberpunk 2077 and Death Stranding, and I still have The Last of Us Part 2 to come. But first it's time for Marvel's Avengers. You only have to look at the last 11 years to understand why Marvel's Avengers game is such a big deal. Since Iron Man in 2008, the Marvel Cinematic Universe has dominated the movie industry, culminating in Avengers Endgame just becoming the highest grossing movie in history. The weird thing, however, is that in this time of unrivaled success, we really haven't had many big Marvel games. We had games like LEGO Marvel's Avengers at the start of 2016 from TT Games, which was brilliant but was a LEGO game so isn't viewed as a mainstream title. Apart from this, we've had a few Ultimate Alliance games and Marvel vs Capcom, which again not mainstream games although they are fun. This has been a really weird trend over the last 11 years. In the movies, Marvel has the big blockbusters 2 or 3 times a year, but in games they just don't. So this is something that changed last year with Spider-Man developed by Insomniac Games. This was a really big deal because finally Marvel were outsourcing its IP to AAA studios and the result was incredible.
Love seeing you two together again. You always were my favorites.
So with a huge AAA game now out in the wild, the next step is clearly to make a game based on their largest IP, the Avengers. This game is being developed by Crystal Dynamics and Eidos Montreal, whilst being published by Square Enix. The game seems to have the right studios behind it. The game is going to be a third-person action-adventure game where you'll get the chance to play as 5 Avengers characters. These include the Hulk, played by Troy Baker, Captain America, played by Jeff Shine, Thor, played by Travis Willingham, Black Widow, played by Laura Bailey, and Iron Man, played by Nolan North. These are the confirmed playable characters, but of course there are more confirmed and teased to be in the game. Hank Pym showed up at the end of the first trailer at E3 with a shrink ray which looks really interesting. Of course this game is set in a different continuity than the MCU, and so there's no Scott Lang, so Hank is set to be Ant-Man. Kamala Khan has been confirmed to be in the game, but there hasn't been any footage of the shape-shifting Ms. Marvel released to the public yet, and Hawkeye has been teased as well. With Hawkeye though, there's been no footage shown, only a tweet from Marvel's Bill Roseman, which teased its existence in the game. In terms of this starting a Marvel's games universe, the developers at Marvel have denied to comment on whether Insomniac's Spider-Man will be included, and have really tried to dodge the question. Of course, no superhero game would be complete without some villains, and so far we've seen a Hulk villain in The Abomination, and the brains behind the attack on A-Day, Taskmaster. For the story of the game, we've quite a lot of details. The game starts at an event called A-Day, which is a celebration of the Avengers, with large crowds set in San Francisco. With this being a superhero game, things quickly go wrong, as there is a terrorist attack on the Golden Gate Bridge, which makes the Avengers jump into action. Long story short, they eventually lose, and it appears that Captain America is killed in a helicopter crash, so the game jumps 5 years into the future. From this point, we haven't seen anything at all yet, but we do know that the whole world hates the Avengers, and the team is completely split without their leader. For the gameplay, we've seen small parts from each character, and this is where the game could become great or a complete failure. Let's start with Iron Man. So far we haven't really seen him on the ground, but we have seen him flying. So far it looks like an on-rail shooter with little control over direction, but you do get to use weapons to take out enemies, and his big special move that comes out of Iron Man's chest. Thor is seen fighting on the bridge whilst taking out enemies with Mjolnir. This included throwing the hammer to pin enemies to a wall and calling it back whilst it takes out anyone in its path. This mechanic needs to work flawlessly, especially after God of War last year, as the Leviathan axe was one of the best weapons in gaming history. The Hulk will obviously be used as a melee character who will just rage around beating bad guys up. Hulk will also be able to use enemies as weapons by beating up others with their bodies. Captain America will use his shield, which will bounce between enemies and once again can be called back. You'll also be able to use combos like hitting bad guys above you and kicking their lights out in the air. Finally, Black Widow uses guns for the most part, so anyone who's played third-person shooters will be familiar with how she works. On top of that, she'll be dodging and flipping around to get out of the way of attacks. If she gets up close and personal, you'll be able to throw quick punches and kicks to take out bad guys. It has been confirmed that more characters will be released in free updates in the future, so we can only hope for the likes of Hawkeye, Spider-Man and Falcon. You'll be able to play as these characters with a friend as well, as the whole game can be played as co-op or as a single player experience. This of course probably means that there'll be multiple characters available for each mission, but quite how this will work is still completely unknown. This game has an awful lot to live up to. With the success of Spider-Man last year and the crazy success of the MCU, Marvel is at the top of their game right now, and this game could really keep it going. On the flip side, if this game doesn't live up to the hype, it could be a huge missed opportunity and something that could seriously damage Square Enix's reputation. In fact, next year is huge for them, with Final Fantasy VII Remake also coming in 2020. Let's just hope that all the backlash about the look of the characters can be overlooked, and the game itself can live up to this crazy amount of hype and expectation. But we don't have too long to wait now, as the game comes out on the 15th of May 2020. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'm Jack, and this has been Games to You.